I can record.
There we go.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Just another note, we know that long-term demand remains strong for the U.S. Our challenge is together, we need to keep the business strong in the short term. So we will have a number of relevant topics and discussions today, of course, but also at the summit in February. And so be sure you're registered to be part of these important discussions. We want to hear your voice. We want to share news with you at that time, and we look forward to seeing you there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julie, my colleague Julie Heiser, and take it away.
Helps to take off the mute, right? Thank you very much, Lisa. And just FYI, I'm going to do this really fast because we really want to get to you guys and to get to all of our speakers, et cetera. So I promise you we will share these few slides with you after the fact so that you've got them in your possession. And it's probably nothing you haven't already heard, so we'll move right along here. Consumer sentiment, we still are 37%. These is according to Brand USA's market intelligence information, and you can always get good intel from Brand USA's website. We do have likelihood to travel to the U.S. This was as of July, so still looking good. Travel parties, probably no real surprises in this. You've got most of the people coming with one other person or with family, and other obviously aggregated people as well. But couples definitely driving the process here, as well as people with kids under 18. Average trip duration. This looks a little short to me, but because it's everybody all collected. You've got Australians and New Zealanders and other people who come from long haul destinations who do way more than 8.7 nights, but aggregated, we get about 9 nights per traveler, which is great. And as we know, those travelers will not be staying in the same spot. So it's a good reason, good excuse to partner with your destinations that are around you, or even with that great multi-city, fly between spots. So keep that in mind. Absolutely. Looking at the next piece of that, which is this multi-city, still and almost always, unless you're somebody who just deep dives, we've got people, the majority of people, almost 60%, who are doing 2 to 3 cities. Not unlikely, not unusual, and maybe that will look a little different this year for World Cup, or maybe it won't. I like the idea that it'll look different this year because maybe people will get out and do Route 66 and do 4 or 5 cities and destinations. So, but just good fodder, good background information. This slide just gives you an overview of all of the trip activities, and I think it's interesting because normally, or as it was a while back, food and shopping were always number one and number two, and I love that Brand USA's research is showing that attractions and entertainment have actually jumped up there. We all know we have to eat, and we all know everybody likes to shop, but I do think that it's a really interesting aggregated piece of information that attractions and entertainment have jumped up over what used to be the number one and the number two. But you can see what other things are done, other things that people do while they're here in the U.S. And I can guarantee you that everybody on the call fits into one of these categories. So it's perfect reason for you to be interested and involved in the international arena. Visitor arrivals, as you can see very clearly, are down. I would just point out that the March, April bars, -11 and +8, really has more to do with the fact that Easter fell in April this year and not in March. So that is a little bit, when you look at this, it's a little bit of a oddball because it's so stark to me. But then you can also see that through July, visitation is down overall for overseas markets. And this is NTTO's latest findings. Too much here to go into, but basically you saw on the previous slide that travel was down through July. this also shows that travel is down, but not as much as it might have. Year to date, we're down like 2.5% for overseas. This is overseas. This does not include Canada or Mexico. So that's an important distinction to make too. But in looking at these data, I would say to you that it is important for you to, or you should, you be using NTTO's website as often as you can, because they post this information, as you can see, on a monthly basis. And I think it's great to know that it's there and you can go and look and see what the actual absolute numbers are. So would encourage you to pick that up. Western Europe, as you can see, Germany has the biggest decline year over year at the moment at about minus 10%, and everybody else falls off from there. Interestingly, in the top five, Italy and Spain are actually in the positive for year over year. So it is that balance. You've got some markets that are willing to continue to travel, and then you've got other markets that are, that are showing that small, I think, decline. Same thing for here, Western Europe. 2021, you can see, was the bad line year. And then everything else has been sort of moseying along. Interestingly, for me, the 23, 24, and 25 numbers have kind of paralleled one another, which I think is interesting, but just shows that, we are still working to recover from 2021, 2020 and 2021. And while everybody had hoped we would be back to pre-COVID 2019 numbers by the end of 26, it's looking like that may not quite be the case. Here you can see, and this slide just makes me dizzy, but it also is very quite pretty. It could be a little piece of art. Just gives you overseas visitors by age group, and you can read that as you wish. But the average age of our travelers these days is about 40 years old. So trending a little bit more towards the shall we say, seasoned travelers. So you can take a look at that and find that, find the group that fits your niche. But this is all really good information that's available both from U.S. Travel and from, not from U.S. Travel, sorry, from Brand USA and from NTTO. Here's year-to-date performance for Eastern Europe. And as you can see, it's mixed as well. And again, Poland and others Poland, Romania, Russia, Hungary are all up, even, some just slightly. So, there is that propensity for people from, I don't know, maybe tougher destinations to not be quite so swayed by current events. So I think it's an interesting push. Might be opportunity there for some of you who may not be in any of these Eastern European markets. Same thing here. You can see trend line against 2019 numbers, or sorry, 2021 numbers, and 2025 is trending about the same way that these countries did in 23 and 24. So a little higher than 23, obviously, but still good information. Here's that crazy art slide again for Eastern Europe. Age a little bit younger, 39.7 instead of 40.1. But you can take that at your leisure as well. And here is, to me, the most important. Go back.
Sorry. I'll go back. Hold on.
Okay. Well, maybe not. Anyway, that last slide gives you the how to connect with NTTO, with Brand USA, and with Tourism Economics. And those are three of the very best data sources that you can have when you're looking at how to build your marketing plan, look at the markets that you want to take care of, et cetera. So I'll shut up and get to the good stuff. Jen.
There it goes. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Julie, for running us through those slides. Welcome to our quarterly office hours, we're calling them, for IITA and our Steps to Success partnership that we have together between IITA, and Alon Tourism Solutions, where we're delivering great resources to the industry about how to work in the international space, how to really take advantage of working with the travel tour operators, and understanding inbound in a fast and effective way so that everybody can do better, because we're in certainly challenging times. So what we decided to do with this one, and we're really glad we did, was focus on the European market, because many of you across the country have gone out to Brand USA Travel Week, you're doing different sales missions of your own, you're attending different trade shows, and kind of just put the, if I might say, the good, the bad, the ugly, with two esteemed panelists today to really talk about, so what do we do in these situations? One thing about tourism is we know we're so resilient. No matter what we've been through, and we've been through a lot, we somehow find the way to shine and to keep things going. I have found, as a consultant in the industry, actually today is the 25th anniversary of my business, which just happened to fall today, and I only figured it out yesterday. But you know, you pick up the pieces, you go, you find new partners. And for me, really focused on the B2B travel space, I rely on the inbound operators to so many extents for our clients. Thank you for that. Because when times are tough, we need people to support us and to give us comfort and to align with. And that's what the travel trade is for me. They're in the same boat we are to bring visitors to our country, and they have the same challenges to keep their as you have your destinations and your businesses alive, they have to do the same. So in my world, I double down in meeting with them and making sure that we're in this together. So conversation to kind of lay it out. What have we been hearing, and what are we going to do together to get through next year, and hopefully get back into the top of the pack there with our international tourism and the love that people do have for this country. So at this point, I'd like to introduce a dear friend, Gisa Hanson, from Allied New World. She has been a partner on the road with me, even in destinations she doesn't even represent through her company, to really help further our education and further the stakeholders' prowess about working in international inbound. And she and Lena today are going to engage in a conversation with me. But Gisa, please say hello and a few words to our guest.
Yes, hello. Lovely seeing you all. I am very happy to be part of this, and always have a blast on the road or on Zoom with IITA Steps to Success program and Alon Marketing Solution. We really are a great team, and I feel that we do bring a lot to the industry just by making what we do accessible to the supplier realm, right? And it's great fun. I think we are only strong if we're all together. I mean, yes, some of us are competitors, but in the end, we all have the same goal. So whatever can further that goal, aside from being different companies, is really what I enjoy doing with you guys. So hopefully today is a good discussion. I bring to it what I can. I am not all knowing, but it's a viewpoint that I can bring to the table. So I'm glad to do it.
You have such enthusiasm for this industry, Gisa. It's a pleasure to work with you every day. And Lena is our chairwoman at IITA of the board. And Lena is also here today to talk to us about what she's hearing, what she's experiencing, and how we might come up with some solutions for questions that you might have, but also just in general about what we're experiencing in the industry. So welcome, Lena.
Hello, everyone. It's so exciting to see so many of you here to listen to me and Gisa, and especially with all the other inbound operators on the call. I feel like there's a lot of knowledge in this room, but Gisa and I are excited to share what we can about the European market. And again, like Jennifer said, hopefully come up with some solutions and things that you can bring back to your destinations and your partners to hopefully either counter or work with the situations that we are currently facing.
Awesome. Thank you, Lena. And with that, we want you to be part of this discussion. So I'm going to ask some questions of all of you where you can chat in the chat discussion room there. And our panelists will pay attention, as will I, to maybe ask to answer those questions, but also to follow up to see how we can help you. But let's start with, from our audience, what is your biggest concern entering 25, 26? It's from 25 into 26. You know, that's a loaded question, but put it in there just so we can take tabs on what we're hearing. And then I want to start our conversation with Lena and Gisa. And let's start with the market itself, right? And you both were attending trade shows, you're talking to your customers, there's always shifts in demand, there's a lot of things that we can dive into. But what are you feeling really strong about with the European market, or where do you see things going soft for 2026? Gisa?
Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter, either one of you.
Yeah, it's fine. I think, you know, the European market is such a vast, even though it's small-ish from the coverage area, it really has such different attitudes in each separate market, right? So that's really what I find the most interesting. There's countries we're seeing more reluctance from. There's countries that don't care what's happening. There's, you know, countries that are stronger, or for us at least at Allied New World on the group side. There's countries that are staunchly doing mostly individual travel. So it's really even hard to give an overall feeling of what's happening in the European market. You really kind of have to take it apart a little bit further than that. And that's kind of what we've been seeing. And when we went out to, you know, overseas travel shows, but also I just came back from Travel South International showcase, where I'm also talked to clients, overseas clients, about the sentiment for the next year. And as you said, as a whole, there's definitely positivity in a way of people will always want to come here. We just need to make it consistently, you know, accessible and also attractive, and give our industries you know, help to make it welcoming, right? So that's the one thing that I think the consensus was at the Travel South International show, at least, where everybody said, like, yes, we do have customers that will always want to travel to the US. That might shift a little bit in what kind of traveler that is. And looking at specific markets, we're seeing currently, for example, like from Italy, we have an extremely strong group request behavior at the moment. There's a lot of volume coming in for different type of group itineraries. And on the individual side, they're a little bit holding back. So even within one market, you have different behaviors. So it's really very individualized of what you are offering as a DMO, or what you are doing as a receptive, what your strengths are. You will find a customer out there for sure. It's not that all of Europe is saying, like, oh, I don't know about the US right now, I don't want to travel. But it will be more challenging, I think, for 26 to find that fine line of affordability versus value for money, versus what do we have to offer that no other destination in the world can offer, and make that the most attractive to still book, right? And honestly, you know, as we're sitting in the midst of our busiest booking seasons, we've seen a pretty strong start. At the moment, it's kind of plateauing a little bit, but it's not, from our side at least, at Allied New World, I can say it's by no means a concern yet that we're seeing a big downturn or anything like that.
Awesome. Gisa, before you go, Lena, I just want to say that's awesome advice and context, because look, we can't control certain things, and we will talk about those things. But what we can do within our control is lean into each other. As I said earlier, we have control to communicate well. We have control to maintain our relationships and not give up on international. We have the context to offer very good products and develop more products and collaborate as destinations. And Alfredo, I see your question about the airlines, but understanding the patterns of airlift and all of that, we'll get into that. But that's how we still succeed, and we talk to our international partners and stitch things together for them and show them that we do care within the realm of what we do. So thank you. That was a great answer. Lena, no pressure. You're up next.
Yeah. And Gisa, had a lot of great information to say. I'll dive a little more into what I heard, and I know this is later on, but I'll just cover it now. When I went to Travel Week, and some of you were there as well, I also did the Nordic mission pre-travel week as well. So I think it is very clear that each country is doing things very differently. The sentiments from the Nordics are that business travelers that are then perhaps taking an extra vacation or doing an extra day of something are still traveling to the US, but in general, the leisure market from those countries is very down. That was pretty clear amongst all of them. Most of the travel agents that even came to our sessions were business travel agents versus leisure travel agents. So that was interesting for me to hear and understand. And then in terms of the countries, I'm exactly with Gisa. Our Italian FITs are strong. They're coming in. And they are booking earlier. Italy has typically been a more last minute booking type of country. Uh, and they all like to travel in the month of August, which is great. Ugh. They want to go to Antelope Canyon in the month of August. That's literally all they're doing. It's not all they're doing, but I'm just but I think part of they are booking earlier than we've ever seen before, partially because some of the things they've wanted to do, like Antelope Canyon or like some of the national parks that may have reservations and all of that, which we don't know for 2026. There's all kinds of things that we can talk about later. But they're learning to book earlier to go to some of these top tier destinations that they know might sell out closer in. But then you look at Germany, much slower. Normally by now we would have a lot more bookings from Germany and expecting them to come within the next month and a half. And they are not, I don't think they're going to come in the way that they have in past years. The UK, which is our largest market, as you saw from Julie's slides, it is doing okay. I think it depends on who you're talking about and who you're talking to. We're seeing mainly high-end travelers as versus anyone in any kind of budget situation. But those high-end travelers from the UK are coming anyway. Um, so it is all kind of up and down. And the other thing that I wanted to just quickly note before we move on, we've seen a variety of reasons as to why these countries are not coming. Some are not coming specifically because the cost is too high and they can go somewhere else for cheaper. But some countries are not coming because of the political climate and they don't feel comfortable. But it is different country to country. So even though a country may be down similarly to another one, the reasoning and the way to get through to them may look completely different based on what their market is reacting to. And it's not the same for every market.
I can add on to that as well. Talking to our sales team and that are just in touch with all the different European markets, and they told me specifically that yes, we hear from Germany, the Nordics, and Spain more vocal about politics versus UK, Italy, Benelux, France that are more vocal about the cost at the moment. So there is a difference, and there is a difference to at least the cost-driven client. Even though there's higher ESTA fees and all of these other things, there is still good opportunity to get them to travel here, right? So we just need to approach them differently. But the ones that are concerned about the politics, there's very little that you can do en masse to change their mind right now. Hopefully things even out a little bit, but we hear a lot from them at the travel shows that are like, every news cycle is another thing about negativity in the States, and that doesn't help any of us. But, that doesn't mean that all of Europe is in that same basket.
Awesome. Really great. This is why, to make my point stronger earlier about relying on you as inbound operators, you know these dynamics of the countries. You're face to face with your customers who bring the consumers. And, we're back to that word pivot, right? So when this one's up, this one's down, we rely on your knowledge to keep us in the know as things are shifting very, very rapidly. So really, really appreciate that. And to the point, like, that's why we don't give up, right? We just make the shift when they make the shift, and we deal with the punches as they come to us, and we keep going. Some of our questions and thoughts that we talked about in our preempt to this was, talking about these markets. I think you addressed everything about leisure, business, seasonality, booking windows change, all of those things. So anybody who wants to ask more about market shifts in Europe, please do in the chat, and we'll address that. We also were going to give you all insights on the industry activity that our panelists have been engaged in through European sales missions and Brand USA. I think we also addressed some of that, but is there any other current feedback that either of you have from your in-market partners that or maybe challenges or priorities, or, we talked about the sentiment, but would you add anything before we move on to the things that we're going to have to navigate in 2026?
I think, Jennifer, in order to really dive into anything, we need to address the elephant in the room, which is the national park fees, because I think at this current moment, that is impacting everything. And the only way we can talk about almost anything is if we talk about that.
Yep. And that's our next topic. So perfect. Yep. So let's get right into it. It is an elephant in the room. There's actually a couple elephants in the room, including what Mindy mentioned about the 5-year social media background checks that are popping up in our inboxes. But let's talk about that, because it's definitely a central industry issue. Lisa Simon's working on that tirelessly every day. And these fee increases for international visitors versus our own residents of the USA really impact perception, cost, all of it. So I'm going to let you talk about your insight into this. Lena, why don't you start?
Yeah. So we did, as Lisa mentioned, have a meeting with the national parks yesterday. And there are still a lot of open questions, as she mentioned, especially on the group's side. So we'll kind of get into that and what that's doing. But from an FIT standpoint, it's pretty clear. And just for you guys all to know, so currently there is an $80 digital pass available, or an $80 pass at the parks. If you purchase that now, it will be valid through whenever the end date is, and you will be grandfathered into the terms of whatever that is. So if you have international traveling, if tour operators do, the individual can purchase that pass online right now and then be good through December 2026. Starting in January will be the $250 or $100 at 11 parks. But the $250 pass will cover you, or the 2025 pass, to not have to pay those fees at those 11 parks. Otherwise, you are paying $100 per person fee. The $250 pass will cover a car of people, the person plus 3 people coming in, 4 people on bicycles, and 2 motorcycles. That is the current situation as we think. It is not, I saw your message, Florence. It is a vehicle. It is irrelevant how many people are in your vehicle. If you are a private citizen and you rent a 14-passenger van, everyone in your van gets in. Now, that's, again, I feel like there may be gate agents who have different views, but that is the general way that this is supposed to work. Basically, the $250 pass and the $80 pass work exactly the same. It's just that if you're not a US resident, you need to pay the $250. We were also advised that online, there will be no citizenship or locality test or any information that you need to give. You can buy an $80 pass no matter who you are. However, once you get to the gate agent will be looking for a ID that comes from the US in order for that pass to be valid when you get to the gate. So they're looking at driver's licenses, is the information we have right now. And if you show up to the gate with the $80 pass for 2026 and do not have a driver's license from the US, you will be asked to pay the $175 to upgrade your pass to the $250 one. In the grand scheme of FITs, this is annoying, but it is not as detrimental as we would think. Again, if you're a family of four and you were going to go to Bryce Canyon, Zion, and Moab and whatever, and Death Valley, some of those would require entrance fees. Some of those would require entrance fees plus the $100 per person. But you buy the $250 pass, you can now get into all of those on your trip. You've paid a little bit more than you would have if you bought the $80 pass, which divided even by two people, that extra 170 bucks is not a make or break for your trip. I think I did speak to some people last night at a Salt Lake City event that did say there are going to be certain parks that may be impacted, such as the Everglades, because there is nothing else around there for it to make sense to buy that $250 pass. So we'll just have to wait and see. But in general, for the larger park itineraries, it shouldn't be as impactful. In terms of groups, that is where we are still working with them on exact things. Right now, the only knowledge we have is that if you have the $250 pass as an individual, the tour company will not have to pay the $100 fee going into the park. But you would need, each individual person on your bus would need to have that $250 pass. That is the
So
only information we have right now.
thank you, Lena. It's really important. And I'm thinking about those on this call that, they're not near the national parks and maybe this doesn't affect them. So maybe my question is, well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you say more annoying than detrimental because
For FITs,
yeah, for FITs.
only for
I know.
FITs.
Exactly. But at least that's something, right? Because you
Right.
can navigate around something like that. But does this deter people in general from coming because they look at us as too complicated, too expensive, really not caring? Like, I guess that's the bigger picture, right? Because if
Right.
what majority of business comes for national parks and we all get extra business out of that, and are they not going to come because of this? And then we're really in trouble. So can you navigate that question at
Right.
all?
I'm gonna finish up with the groups, and Gisa can add
Yeah.
on to that, because I think when we're talking about booking windows, this is where we've run into a problem because we don't have the information about the groups right now. So groups that are already booked, or passengers that are already booked on group tours, tour operators and inbound operators are trying to navigate the cheapest way to get them to not have to pay a lot extra. Basically, anyone interested in groups for 2026 that hasn't booked yet is not booking, and they will not book until the implementation of how this is going to work is clear. And so that's also what we are trying to impress upon the national parks themselves, as well as the Department of the Interior, is that whatever the answer is, it needs to come quickly so that things can move forward and plans can be made. And we did address with them that, if you're booked on a trip and a price goes up, you then have the opportunity in most European countries, if the price goes up significantly due to surcharges and things like that, to cancel your trip free of cost. Now, there may be non-refundable flights involved in that and other things that the tour operators are going to have to eat on their own if clients decide to cancel. So again, I think this is going to push some of that booking window that we're used to much tighter than it used to be. Gisa,
Right.
I don't know if you want to add anything else about groups specifically before we move on to her other question about how it's impacting other destinations.
Right. And I think we're fighting two things here, right? The one thing is that we're sitting in our main booking season right now, and obviously are all waiting for these bookings to come in for our escorted tour series and bus tours and so on and so forth, of things that have been published and are out there in the market in Europe. And people that haven't booked yet, we're risking every day we're waiting for clarification, we're risking them booking another long haul destination, because I don't think that necessarily somebody that's traveling to the national parks, be it FIT or group in any type of shape or form. And I agree with you, Lena, that we heard from clients that the 250 for a car for the FIT traveler is not breaking their will to come here. However, the group thing is a major slice of all of our, or of many receptive to operators business. And there we're risking with every day going by that they're just booking Thailand or something else. And I think that is a lot of times for a lot of the European markets that the national park trip, be it a fly dive or be it in groups, but especially on the motor coach tours, is our first timer traveler, right? So this is a significant issue that is somebody that's coming for the first time to the US. They really want to see the national parks. Now it's starting to look really unaffordable. They don't necessarily pivot and go like, oh, I'm going to go to Florida instead or something. That's not the same customer. So as a whole country, we do lose out a big amount of slice of revenue there if this is not being solved.
And I'm going to answer two questions that came into the chat real quick. Wendy, this changes nothing with CUAs for charter bus companies. The CUA is still required, the per vehicle fee to go into the parks that require that. The difference is if that vehicle goes into a park and has any international travelers on it, whether it's 2 out of 20 or 100% of that 40 passengers, each of those clients will be required to pay the $100 surcharge going into the park, one of those 11 parks. And then to answer the
Or
other,
have the pass.
well, so
Or have
that's
the
the,
pass.
so that's, I'm answering a second question.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
That no, you're good. So yes, so then the other option is to buy those passes for your clients for $250 per person right now. Again, we're waiting on exact clarification on that. That would then waive you from the $100. So it would depend on what parks you're entering and how many you're entering if you decide to include or ask clients to buy the $250 pass to cover them. If you are going to Grand Canyon, Bryce, and Zion, then it makes sense. If you are only going to Yosemite on your trip, it may be cheaper to just pay the $100. The other note on implementation that we got right now is that you will be required to present like a manifest while entering the park that lists out how many international versus how many, and then the fees will be charged right there at the gate. There is no way to prepay the $100 surcharges, which again, for FITs, it is what it is. They would have paid the fee there anyway. But for groups, your group leader or whoever will need to pay the $100 per person that they note is an international at the gate at that time, or show I have 10 international, I have 10 of these passes, the names match, because again, it has to be for the person. You cannot just present any, it has to be a pass with their name on it and the name on the manifest to enter the park. So I hope that answers both of those. But again, the uncertainty on the groups is whether the pass could potentially cover multiple people the way it has for in other situations, or if it will truly be a per person additional cost if you choose to purchase that $250. The $100 is 100% per person payable at the parks.
It sounds like, Lena, you have a master's degree in this, so thank you for being so informative to us, because for most of us, we don't have the time to dig into it like this. Just back to that last question, and then I want to move on to two more topics before we open it to the audience. But is it impacting us overall, is the question for everybody else, right? Like, I'm in New York, and maybe national parks isn't such a drive, but how does it affect the rest of us, and how much should we be paying attention to this? And more important, let's end this conversation about NPS with what should we encourage everyone on this call to get involved in and make noise in the right places to do so that we can fix this. That's a lot, but.
Yeah. And I was going to add on to what Gisa said. I will say for 2025, some of my main destinations for my FIT travelers was Yellowstone and that region, and Utah, Arizona, and that region. The amount of requests I am now getting for those regions has dropped, and I am getting more requests for the southern states where there is less of that impact. So we are definitely seeing a shift because again, this does mainly concern people who have been to the US before, a lot of the UK travelers and things like that. Um, but we are seeing a shift in where people are going. So it may benefit some of the destinations more because they'll be getting business that might have gone somewhere else. However, I think those, as Gisa mentioned, those first time travelers who have that dream of like LA, Las Vegas, Grand Canyon, they're probably going to pick a different destination until they can do that trip in the way they want to, or until this gets resolved in a way that makes sense to them.
Got it.
And
Just a
I want to,
quick
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Lisa and the team is working on an FAQ doc that will be available so that people who do have these national park questions can go on there and look at it. It will be available on the website. It will get updated as we get new information. 'Cause we don't want to spend a ton more time on national parks, but it is currently one of the major issues affecting European travelers to the US.
Thank you, Lena. Gisa?
Yes. And I also wanted to mention it's a little bit hard to foresee, right? So like for AlliedTPro, our main boater coach business is Italy and Spain. Yes, we're seeing concern, same on the FIT side. However, so far until this news came out, we were very much happy with the booking numbers. And now it has definitely slowed down since we're waiting for clarification. Hopefully it gets resolved quickly, hopefully in a manner that is not as bleak as it looks right now, so we can pick back up on those bookings. However, you know, for a traveler that wants to see just generally beautiful landscape and wants to come to the US and do national parks, there is an opportunity, obviously, more so on the FIT side, to direct them over to the East Coast parks, where there are very, very many national parks that don't have a fee, right? Or that are not affected by this fee. As we see, it's only for 11 of the most popular national parks. But there is definitely opportunity for some of the passengers that have maybe been here several times, and for them it might be more of a question of, am I going west this time or to the south, or am I doing New Hampshire or the New England states? So it's not, we don't want to be the negative Susans here and say like this is gonna ruin all travel to the US, but we have to be aware that the national parks is just one part. We are being seen as a whole currently as a fairly expensive destination, because both on the group and motor coach tour series side, as the auxiliary cost has just risen, right? Food, you know, bus costs. I mean, there's so many other pieces to the puzzle when it comes to bus tour travel that has also risen in cost significantly over the last few years, that have nothing to do with anything else, political or whatever. It's just, it is what it is. Right. And so with that in mind, as a whole, for all suppliers on this call, it's just that we need to look at other ways to make ourselves a desirable and interesting destination that can overcome the risen cost and some of the other things. And that's really where we need to, work together on, be it destinations working together, coming up with itineraries, putting more power behind the Route 66 anniversary or other things that are currently out there and are not FIFA. So, there's definitely opportunity, but the national parks, and especially the ones that are listed, are one of our main, desirable travel destination. We can't ignore that.
Thank you, Gisa, and always good with the advice to redirect and point in new directions. And again, that's why we rely on you as inbound operators, because you have these solutions. Tying in it with exactly what you said about redirecting and
Jennifer,
looking at our
I'm going to make one more comment on the
Sure.
national parks. Also, Lisa will be sending out, if hasn't sent out already, ways that you can get involved. So even if you are not in a state or destination that has national parks, there are ways to talk to your senators about the fact that, if you're anywhere near one, if people aren't going to that park, they may also not be coming to you, or just in general, how, as Gisa mentioned, it makes us look like we are uninterested in international and makes it harder for you guys to do your jobs. So there are ways for you to get involved, and we think that through advocacy is going to be one of the only ways to really impact this issue. So everybody talking and doing that is important. And Lisa
Excellent.
has like letters to your representatives you can send out.
So Lisa, we'll look forward to sharing that with the audience who's here today, and that's great because it'll give them impetus on how to react and also what the facts are. So that's great. Going along with, pivots, redirect shifts, we have the FIFA World Cup 2026, America 250, Route 66, all these things. So let's just talk for a minute around the idea of that people auto book and do what they do, or are there opportunities, and maybe other inbound operators on this call can chime in, to build surrounding itineraries together? What are the opportunities to work with you on that? Do you feel like that's all set up and in place, or do you feel like a takeaway from this session could be like, reach out to us and we want to learn more about how to navigate customers for these big events that are coming? Is there something there that we could be doing better, ladies, as suppliers and destinations to work with inbound operators for these big events?
I think the one thing I want to say to that is with FIFA World Cup, we reached out to many of our clients long in advance and said,
Yep.
like, hey, how do you see this? International operators, how do you see this? What do you want to do? How do you promote it in your own country? How high is the interest level and all of that? Now, I can't speak for the whole world, and obviously we're concentrating on Europe here, but what we've heard back at that time already from many clients is like, well, tickets are going to be expensive. The FIFA World Cup covers way too much destination. It's going to be too complicated and too expensive. We're not really concentrating on it. So now that the teams were assigned and all of that, we do see a little bit of an uptick in interest, but it's not really yet, from what I see, an actual desire to book. It's more like, how would this even work if we wanted to come? It wasn't very helpful in the leading up months when we actually contracted the 2026 dates, that there was absolutely no consensus from the hotel side of what to do with these dates in the host cities. So that was a definite definite stumble block, where you could have in one destination 3 hotels that behaved completely differently. One blacked you out for 6 weeks, one gave you higher rates for just the game dates, and the other one said, oh, here's your FIT contract, we'll black you out when we need to. So that was not helpful to coming up with packages or doing anything that is very widely sellable. And now what we're hearing from a lot of clients is basically that the whole World Cup situation is more of a stumbling block than an opportunity, and clients that are now coming saying, like, how can I travel around it without paying an arm and a leg to still be part of maybe some of the auxiliary experience of it, but not necessarily going to the host cities and or to the games themselves. But that's just what we hear from our specific customers.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that sentiment. it's become, it was maybe we want to go, here's some places we're interested in before, until until the games actually came out. And now that they have, especially certain destinations, you can't find anything, or the hotels are just, they don't want to give group blocks. They don't want to do any of that. They just want the travelers to come to them directly and pay $1,000 per night to stay in their Hampton Inn in 40 miles away from the stadium. And so while I am getting requests and this may be something that if people wanted to have an actual conversation, be interesting for like sports specific operators to talk about, because perhaps they knew they would get enough clients to do blocks in every destination city, so they had stuff to sell. But as a company that relies pretty heavily on Western Europe to be our sales, if I blocked rooms in a destination that ends up having no games for Europeans, I would have no one to sell those blocks to, or would have to completely change. So we didn't do that. And now that I know where Scotland is playing, which is Boston, I'm getting requests every day to contract hotels in Boston or get them rates. And either they're already sold out, or they're just, again, uninterested in this kind of thing. Even if I say I will have 150 people from the like fan club that want to come over, they're like, no, we're good. Or the rooms are $1,500 for that whole week and nobody wants to pay that. So, again, I think there probably would have been a better way to manage this, but it came.
I think it echoed exactly how other major sporting events were happening, right? Be it Formula One when it first came over, other things that were the destinations are extremely excited, overestimating what's going to happen, totally outpriced themselves. And now they're going to come to us 3 weeks out going like, oh, please give me some business. I give you special rates. Well, tough luck. I mean, moving on, right? That's something I think that ship has kind of sailed now. We're going to get what we can facilitate, but it's not something that makes a lot of sense to me as my company to now actively promote. Now it's different with things like, the Route 66, for example. I mean, that is something that has a completely different ring to it. And similar things to that. We might have, other things like, I think we're coming up on 50 years Elvis death anniversary, Elvis kind of things that have a different ring because they're striking a different audience in Europe, right? So I just came back from, again, Travel South International. I did a quick little post-fam on Route 66 in Missouri, so the Missouri destinations. And we heard a lot from clients on those that, yes, they're promoting it. I spoke to my group department. They're heavily quoting groups right now along different parts of Route 66 for the different anniversary, year next year. So those things have definitely a ring. There is a way to promote these in a way that makes sense for us as a community here, and also for the European customers. It's also sometimes difficult, especially speaking about Route 66, because it's so long and each of the states has a very different way or approached it a very different way. Illinois did a fantastic job. Some of the Western destinations did a great job. The in-between, not so much. So it's always that, right, where we as receptives are leaning on UDMO, saying like, you guys need to work together, right? If we want to make an impact, but I can only book a certain part of it because then the next state over doesn't really promote it or do anything with it. That really hinders us to be successful promoting some of these special events or even special itineraries all through. But that goes also above and beyond just special events, right? This is for any itinerary where there's some of the DMOs doing a much better job cooperating across state lines than others are. And that's where we lean on you guys.
And I'm going to echo the sentiments of Gisa in terms of Route 66. I think that's probably the bigger event in general happening. The people that we see going to FIFA are FIFA fans. I'm going to say too, I know that there's been a lot of effort put in to try to be like, okay, you're coming to the games. What else can you see around? And every request that I've gotten is literally just staying in the destinations for the games. Even the Scotland ones is like, I want to arrive in Boston on June 11th. The game's on the 12th. The next game's on the 19th. So they're staying there for the entire time. They're departing on the 20th. They're going to Miami. They're not looking to do any itineraries, they're there just for FIFA. Though that's those clients. Whereas Route 66 is a leisure traveler. And I also think that Route 66, if you talk about it with an American, they're like, yeah, I've driven through Flagstaff. I took a picture at the sign. Cool, whatever. I drove through Santa Monica last night and I ended up on a portion of Route 66 and Google said Route 66. And I was like, oh, I'm driving on Route 66. But literally that's what Americans are about, right? They're going to go to their local events. They're going to do, but there is, and I could be wrong, but there are probably very few Americans who are going to start in Chicago and end in Santa Monica and do all of Route 66 next year. Whereas from an international perspective, if they are coming to do Route 66, they want to do the whole thing. We've seen a lot of, but you could do this section or you can do this and deep dive and do. They're coming one time. They want to do the whole thing. That's their trip. But at the same time, that name means a lot more, especially in Europe, than it does in the US. So promoting that as a trip is like pulling on heartstrings over there. And they're like, oh, really? Route 66? Yeah, I've always wanted to do that drive. It's the anniversary. I will do it. Um, and I will say, from a standpoint of affordability, because of the destinations that it goes through, and because there are a lot more small town options along the way, it can be a more affordable trip. You know that in certain destinations, Chicago, Santa Monica, you're going to have very high prices. But throughout the trip, if you overprice yourself as a destination that has another pretty iconic stop within an hour of your destination, they're going to go to that other stop. They're not going to you. So that's one thing to keep in mind too, is that since they're doing that whole thing, they're driving 4 to 5 hours a day. So wherever makes sense along their stop and isn't going to cost them $1 million is probably where they are stopping.
And I also think
Awesome,
it's not
Lena.
just a 1 year program, right? It's like, yes, the anniversary is next year. However, there's a lot of destinations that I've heard from and seen now that are doing something starting in 26 and then keep celebrating that 100th anniversary for at least another year. So and that's the other thing when we're talking about promoting these type of programs. As we said before, for us, 26 right now is already well on the way. We are now all looking at promoting and adding to what we can offer the international travel community for 27 already, right? So that goes on. It's not just what do we do for 26? Yes, we have made those choices already before in 24 and 25, but now it's really like, how do we move on, even if 26 turns out a bit softer, but we need to continue promoting these. I will say one more thing: the USA 250 or America 250 isn't doing really much for us. I think that then goes back to the general sentiment right now, where it's going like we're not looking super welcoming right now. So then if you go with that to the European markets and you're like, hey, America 250, they all go like, yeah, whatever. So, that's
Ladies,
not
we're at time, so we have to stop.
Sorry.
I know you would talk forever, and you have such a wealth of knowledge and so much context within the international market. But to be fair to everyone on, we should end. I looked at the questions to see that we answered most of them. If we didn't, we'll answer them offline. Obviously, this is a good thing because so many of you are here. We look forward to letting you know the next date and finish some of the questions that we had for our panelists with new panelists. And we thank you so much for all attending. And everybody have a super great holiday and New Year. And we can do this in 2026. And I love your enthusiasm, Gisa. 2027. Let's start thinking about it and doing that too. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.